Let's go ahead and change out our tire and our front fender now. This is a piece of cake if you follow the directions here. So first what we'll do is we'll put the double kickstand down. Go ahead and put that one down, prop it up on that. And then we're going to need some kind of a little support to put under the exhaust pipe here once we remove the front fender. So I'll go ahead and have something available. You can go ahead and pop this off first, and then the first thing we're going to do is remove the speedometer cable. Okay, first go ahead and unscrew the top of the speedometer cable from the speedometer underneath the bike there. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and undo the bottom. Unscrew that, and then the speedometer cable will pull right out. Next, go ahead and remove the cotter pin from the nut here, and then loosen that nut up. We'll do that before we put the jack stand under the exhaust pipe. Let's go ahead and put a jack stand or something under this pipe right here to keep the bike from falling down. There's not a lot of pressure on that, so just something to prop that up. Make sure it's something solid though so it won't slip off. Okay, let's go ahead and slide the axle out. And then you may have to lift up on a little bit to slide the tire out. Okay, there's 4 bolts on the underside of the fender. We'll go ahead and remove those. And the underside. So go ahead and remove those. And then we'll go ahead and pull the fender out. Grab these brackets. There's screws in the brackets. So we're going to go ahead and take the tape out, and then we'll mount these to the motorcycle. Go ahead and install the brackets like this, and be sure and use a little Loctite on the threads. And then make sure the ears are in. Just like that. Okay, before you send your wheel out to have it painted and have the tire installed, go ahead and you can slide this bushing out like that. And then you can go ahead and take the speedometer housing out also. Then you can go ahead and have the tire mounted and balanced. Hey, that was fast. My wheel is painted and the tire is on the rim. So now I'm going to go ahead and reinstall it on the bike. Now this is really important. Before you put the speedometer housing in the wheel here, there's 2 little slots on both sides. They have to line up with the slots here. So look down inside and make sure that the slots line up with that. You can push it in several places and you'll find out when it seats in there all the way. There it goes. Sometimes it takes a minute, but you want that to go down all the way in there. That's really important. Okay, I've put the bushing in this side. And I've got my speedometer housing on that side, and I've kind of put the wheel on an angle to get it past the rotor, the caliper back there. So slide that in. And one thing I've done that'll make it a lot easier is I've tied the handlebar, because what happens is the handlebar keeps wanting to drift to one side. So you may want to tie either both or one side of the handlebar to keep the fork straight. We're ready to slide that wheel and tire in place. Okay, as we insert the speedometer into the fork here, now when we get finished, we want this barb here to be in between. There's 2 pegs there. We want that to be in between so that this angle is slightly on the upswing, about like that. It'll have a little bit of movement, but we don't want it down like that and do it too much. Just make sure that fits in there. You can feel them right there. I want to make sure that fits in there when we install that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and install the wheel now, and then watch the next little video, and I'll show you what you do with the rotor won't fit into the caliper. As you slide the rotor into the caliper, if the caliper collapses there, then you can put a screwdriver in there and pry it open from this side. You can pry that open, then the rotor will slide into the caliper. Here's something I forgot to mention earlier too, is if the bike's gonna sit for a while without the wheel on it, you want to put a piece of tape around there and to remind yourself and everybody else not to pull on that brake lever. Because if you pull that brake lever while there's no rotor in the caliper, the caliper could go together and you could lose fluid. So tape that off until you've got your tire mounted. Okay, next we want to carefully install the axle. Okay, and double check to make sure that the speedometer is on that angle right there like that. Okay, go ahead and put your washer and your nut on. Just finger tight it for now, and then make sure that that's in the right angle just before you finish there. That should rotate about like that from top to bottom. You want to rotate it toward the upper side. Let's prepare a fender now for the mounting on the motorcycle. Now what we want to do is we want to use some silicone sealant or maybe some, some caulking. Just anything you may have around your house that some kind of sticky gooey stuff. Because what we want to do is we want to stick these to the fender. I've stuck this before so I don't need, you put a great big old bead of gooey stuff right there. And this was silver, yours will be black. This is so you can see it better. And then go ahead and put the screws through it. Oh, and these are the screws that have the rubber washers under. Yours will be black. Let's go ahead and put the screw through there, and then we'll put the nuts on, and then we'll just cinch them up with finger tight and let them dry for just a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to let this sit for just a little while. Preferably overnight would be better, but I know you're going to be impatient like me, so I'm going to let this sit for at least an hour or two, hopefully, and then we'll put it on the bike. And then always do this after the painting is finished, because you don't want to get any kind of sealant on this surface or the paint will not stick. I noticed one thing when I mounted the fenders, that we're going to have to loosen these up a little bit with a wrench. Just take a little wrench and then just back these out just a little bit. Even though you've Loctited them, they should back out a little bit. We want these just a little bit loose so they'll move before we lay the fender on there. If you'll notice that the fender has kind of a flat edge there and then a rounded edge there. So the rounded edge is the front. So we're going to make that the front. Okay, then just lay the fender in like that, kind of on an angle. Then carefully lower it down on the struts. Then we'll put some screws in there. Okay, I've got this fender mounted on the bike now. What we want to do is we want to use the nylock nut. Now this is a monster, so you can see it. Use this style of nut. There's the real one. Make sure you use that and not the regular nut, just this style. And then let me show you a trick to getting the nut underneath there. Okay, just take a little piece of masking tape and then the sticky side out, just wrap it around like that and into itself so it's sticky on both sides. Then you can go ahead and stick it to your finger and stick the nut on there. That way you can shove it under there and pull this screw out until you see it and then put the screw in there. That works great. So go ahead and do all four. And then we'll use the wrench and the screwdriver underneath to tighten them up. Make sure they're nice and snug. And then after you get that snug, then go ahead and tighten these back up again. And I think there is room under there to get the, you may have to, tighten them with that. And then I think there's room under there to get the box end on there and snug them up. So make sure this is all nice and tight. Oh, and your screws will be black. Okay, I've removed my jack stand on the exhaust, and then let's go ahead and finish up by tightening this bolt. Make sure you snug that up good and line it up to the hole, and then make sure you use a new cotter pin. Make sure you use another cotter, a brand new cotter pin if you can, and then that front end's ready to go. It wouldn't hurt to just double check these screws one more time. Make sure that's nice and snug. Man, that fender looks nice on there. Oh, one final note on this, there is 2 sets of holes in this axle, so you don't have to get ridiculously tight on that to find that hole. So snug, but not ridiculous.